tonight on the Mac to the Future Go Livecast. It's a solo show tonight for reasons. A flaw in a web conference app turns your Mac's webcam into a spy. Completely unrelated to trade tensions between the U.S. and China, Chinese state-run media claimed users are unhappy with fake App Store reviews. Hong Kong protesters use a unique way to get information back and forth to each other, and access to the uncensored internet is becoming more difficult in China. A lot of China stuff tonight. All tonight on the Mac to the Future Go Livecast. See you in a minute. Hey everybody. Yeah, it's a solo show tonight. Dave kind of messed up his leg while he was in Italy and he wasn't able to make it. And Warren's not going to be here for reasons that I'm just not going to go into. We're just going to let that go right away. But I do have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, and I don't know if comments are going to come through. It doesn't look like they are. I have them turned on. However, they don't seem to be working. I will leave that up where it is, just in case. It may work, it may not. It looks to me like everything is doing what it's supposed to, except I'm still not getting comments. But we're gonna let that go. First up, we have some quick takes. Quick takes tonight. There's an owner that has an iPhone, and he or she has registered their cat's paw as a means to unlock their iPhone for reasons. And I believe it was a young girl. And so she used her cat's paw and set it up as a way to access her iPhone. And then in the video that accompanied it, her father then goes up with like one of his fingers. He can't open a phone. And she just comes up with her cat, puts the paw on the phone. Boop, phone comes up. So weird. There are rumors that there are 5 new iPads that are running the iPad OS that have been registered in Europe, which means that we may or may not be getting new iPads soon, which would be nice. Virginia winning the Amazon HQ2 over New York had little to do with politics, except it did. And it's not a political show, but most of us, I think, understand why Amazon decided to take their headquarters out of New York, and they basically took their ball and bat and went home. Now, as far as the main stories tonight, Apple has released a report on. Sorry, let me rephrase that. There's a company called Zoom that does web conferencing, and their web conferencing software allows other people apparently to turn on your Mac's camera, and they can force you to join a conference. The bug doesn't require the user to actually be using the software at the time, nor does it have to be in Zoom's service online. Any website can host the code that will infect the user. The code can be used in a malicious ad or a phishing campaign, or could launch a denial of service attack on the infected Mac. The vulnerability itself is due to Zoom installing a web server on your Mac that remains even if you delete the software. An update is coming soon that is supposed to get rid of the issue that really, really shouldn't have been there in the first place. Okay. Now, like I said, there's a lot with cameras focusing it out. There's a lot to do with China tonight. There's a story in 9 to 5 Mac that the Chinese government is unhappy about fake reviews on Apple's iOS App Store. Chinese users are complaining in state-controlled Chinese media about fake reviews in Apple's App Store that are misleading and has led to some sales of useless applications. Other not Chinese app stores and goods are receiving much of the same complaints. And chances are this has a lot to do with the current trade tensions between the US and China, more than it has to do with any real issues with Apple's App Store. But speaking of Chinese stories, from the same article, Hong Kong protesters are using Apple's AirDrop technology as a means of transmitting information that doesn't have to go through local servers. Each person that is considered safe to receive the information uses a code word on their iPhone, which tells the sender that it's safe to send it to them. They've started using simplified Chinese to get coverage of the protests in mainland China, which is probably sure to rile up the local government. Hong Kong, while it is Chinese run, is a former, for people who don't know this, is a former colony of the United Kingdom, and had been for many, many years. The UK released Hong Kong back to China, I believe it was at the end of 1999, under the conditions that it remained mostly autonomous, so they pretty much run their own affairs there. But it doesn't always quite work out that way. And there was recently protests over an extradition treaty between Hong Kong and China that would have allowed China to extradite people that they say were violating their laws. And there was a lot of coverage on it in the Western civilization, of course, very, very little in China. But this is, this is more along the lines of China trying to ignore their own history. And again, speaking of China, the Great Firewall raises even higher, again from the same article. VPN access to foreign sites slowed to a crawl during the Hong Kong protests to try and prevent the Chinese mainland from getting more information. VPNs and data plans from other countries are usually ignored, but with increasing frequency, this is no longer the case. We were talking last week about China in a certain province that they're having troubles with a mostly Islamic population. There's been a lot of reports of camps and torture and mass arrests and all kinds of things. And when Western reporters go in to try to report on the story, they meet up with a lot of resistance from the local government. And one of the things that they've started doing is, if you have an Android phone, in the process of getting to this province. Now, this is after you've already entered China proper. You still have to go through some kind of screening when you get to this province. They take your phone and they actually put malware on the phone. They search the phone for anything that they would consider to be subversive or against their own interests, and including text and pictures and your web history and all the rest of that. Then they also put on some software, and they don't even try to hide it. I mean, you can see it right there on the main screen, that kind of monitors what the phone is doing, where the phone is gone. Not that they probably couldn't do that anyway. But this is kind of what what foreigners are having to go through when reporting on conditions in China. So, I don't know. I'm trying to keep this non-political, but there's just some things that you just can't get around. We have some comments. Damon and Frank are joining us tonight, saying sorry about the women's world. Oh, okay. Damon, who's from I think Australia, New Zealand. He's from down under, the South Pacific. And Frank Petrie is talking about saying sorry about sorry about the Women's World Cup. Buddhist dissidents too fighting against Muslims. Oh, that's just great. And also, we're getting a new UK ambassador. Let's just let that. We're not going to comment on that tonight. The last story that I have tonight. This is going to be a short show. I really need somebody to kind of bounce off of to make it a longer show. Is the MacBook dead? This is a story from anantech.com. Apple has delisted the MacBook as a product to be sold new. It also hasn't been updated in over 2 years, making it likely that it won't be sold anymore. Now, I know that they just recently updated some of their other laptops, including the MacBook Air, which everybody thought was going to be the one that was going to go. But apparently, there's been such a brouhaha over the butterfly style keyboard that was so prominent in the MacBook that they're just gonna, for at least for now, it looks like they're just gonna let the product die. And in the process of going back to scissor type keyboards or scissor contact type keyboards, they're just gonna let the MacBook Air go, or MacBook Air, the MacBook go away. So I don't really know how I feel about it. The MacBook was always kind of an underpowered Mac. It was certainly good enough for everyday tasks, for the kinds of things that a typical user would do. Nothing too heavy. I mean, you wouldn't want to edit video or audio or anything like that along those lines. But for standard everyday use, it was fine. So now, I guess people who need a laptop like that or similar to that are going to have to get a MacBook Air or go to the low-end MacBook Pro, or they could also go to an iPad Pro, because there's pretty much the kinds of stuff that you would do on the MacBook Air or even the regular MacBook. You can do all those things in an iPad or on an iPad. So when you're out shopping for your next laptop, I mean, really take a look at the things that you use a laptop for. And if your needs aren't that great, go ahead and get think about getting an iPad. I use mine every single day. I've got a 12.9-inch first gen iPad Pro, and I love it, especially since putting the new beta for the iPad OS on it. It's really made it almost a whole different machine. Okay, news on 7.1 Mac Pro pricing other than WDC 6K entry model. No, not that I'm aware of. It's not going to be cheap. When you've got a computer that starts at the low end at 6K with a monitor that starts at another $1,000, you're not looking at inexpensive incremental increases in power. If you're going to go to more cores, or if you're going to add more memory, and it doesn't use the same kind of memory as like the iMacs do, or if you wanted to add more storage, internal storage, when you first buy it, well, it's not going to be cheap. But for the people that need something like the Mac Pro, they're probably not going to bat an eye. I mean, I would love to have one. The damn computer just looks gorgeous. But I just can't, I would not be able to justify the expense of a Mac Pro with the things that I do. So, that's going to be about it for me until, 10 years go by, the way I got my other Mac Pro, the one I gave to my son. Okay. that is going to about do it for this evening. Like I said, it's going to be kind of a short show. If you'd like to get a hold of me, if you have suggestions for stories, you can send that to guy@mymac.com. You can also contact me via the Twitters, MacParrot or VertShark. Besides Mac to the Future Livecast, go Livecast, go Livecast. I also do Guy's Daily Drive, which I don't do every day. I just put out a new episode this morning that I recorded yesterday, as well as the MyMac.com podcast that I do with Gazmaz. And I just, these are all things that I do. And if you would like to help support things that I do, because all of this, other than the MyMac podcast, I pay for myself, you can help support me by buying me a coffee over at ko-fi.com/MacParrot, or become a regular Patreon at patreon.com/MacParrot. I just picked up a new Patreon, Owen Rubin, just last week. And thank you to everyone who has donated any amount. I mean, it is really greatly appreciated, and I thank you very, very deeply for doing so. If you would like to meet me in person, you can. Coming up at the end of this month, in about 2.5 weeks, is going to be the MacStock Conference and Expo, which is going to be in Woodstock, Illinois, at the McHenry Community College. For the entire conference, it's $249. You can use my coupon code, MyMacGuy, MyMacGuy, for get $70 off of that, making your total cost for the entire weekend for the conference $179. There's lots of hotels in the area. The food is really good. The people are going to be even better. If you've never been to the MacStock Conference and Expo, and this is the 5th year for it, if you have the time, it's just outside of Chicago. Check it out. Go to MacStock2019.com or MacStockConferenceandExpo.com for more information on everything that's going to be going on there. You don't want to miss it if you can. If you'd like to get a hold of Dave Ginsburg, his Twitter address is DaveG65. He has 2 different podcasts. He has the In Touch with iOS podcast, which is a weekly show, usually. He also has the Off the Charts horse racing, which is kind of what it sounds like it is. And he is also the president of the Suburban Chicago Apple Users Group. You can find out more information on that group at myscau.org. And of course, Warren Sklar. You can't get a hold of him except over on Facebook, because that's how he likes it. And I think, unless there is some other comments going on, I think that is going to do it for this evening. Thank you all so very, very much for watching and or listening, because I will convert this to audio later and put it up in the Guy's Daily Drive feed. So if you subscribe to Guy's Daily Drive, not only will you get Guy's Daily Drive, you will also get the audio from this show each and every week that I also put into that same feed. So thank you all so very, very much for watching, like I said, and or listening to the Mac to the Future Go livecast. We will be back here next week, hopefully with Warren and David. Until then, have a great night, and I'll see you next time.